Hello, 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 and welcome again to Words Have Power. This is Teresa Hawley-Howard, your host, and I'm so excited to have another amazing woman, another well-written author. You're going to really love her book. I know you're going to want to go to Amazon and order it as soon as you hear this interview. So welcome to the show, Linda. How are you? And tell us about yourself.
I am doing fantastically. This is the last week. The book does come out in Kindle on October 24th, and I'm just so very excited. Who am I? I'm a writer, number one international best-selling author of several anthologies. I also have my own book, The Art of Herding Cats, Leading Teams of Leaders, which it's been described as a potato chip book. In other words, you read a chapter and you want more. So it was kind of a fun, larky book that I wrote for network marketing leaders, as a matter of fact. I retired as a major in the United States Army. I've been a vice president in several banks, and I've had my own company now for 33 years. We do a couple things. We do conference and convention planning, meeting planning, that kind of thing. But I also have Dare to Lead with Linda, which is really designed around helping women to actually step into their leadership and to know that they are a leader, and that in order to change the world, they have to take that by the tail and really make it happen.
That's so true. So let's talk about the book coming out on October 24th.
Okay. The book, as you know, the title is No One Stood Up When I Entered the Room, One Woman's Journey from Command to True Leadership. And it's my story in a lot of ways. It talks about the fact that I grew up in the masculine model of leadership, which is command. It's the telling to people, you're going to do this and you're going to go there and whatever. And we need command. I'm not saying that command needs to go away. We need it, especially for people who are first responders. So the police, the fire department, the military, in a lot of respects, needs command, because you need that ability to say, there's a fire, we're going that way. And you don't want somebody to go, well, I really think we could go that way. It might be just, no, you want them to follow you because you know where you need to go. On the other hand, when we don't lead with the feminine, which is the influential piece, with the compassion, collaboration, cooperation, empathy, all of that, when you don't lead with that, you have a real strong tendency of losing your team because they don't want to be commanded. So I started with that masculine model of command, and the military's perfect at it. But I found when I was an entrepreneur, and as I'm an entrepreneur now, that my team wouldn't follow me. I had them dropping off like flies, and I didn't know why. So I've really discovered a blended model, a marriage of that masculine and feminine, which I coined the word confluential leadership. And it's the marriage of the two, and with the strengths of both.
It's so true. In those stressful, like first responders, police, fire, you need that absolute command. It is imperative to success, to saving lives, to really, for them to function correctly, they have to have that. But in entrepreneurship, if you don't have a little bit of that empathy, a little bit of that finesse, a little bit of that softness, you're right. They're not going to follow. You're going to lose team members. If you're in a network marketing situation, you're going to lose the people that you signed up because they just do not respond well to that. Do it now, do it here, do it this way. No questions asked mentality. And so we have to have a marriage of it, though, because you can't get things done always being on the fluff side, always being on the softer side. We have to have a little bit of that command backbone side in order to be an effective leader. But we have to learn how to marry the two. So tell us why you decided to write the book.
Well, the book actually started out very interestingly. I did a workshop called Seeds of a Movement, and it revolved around leadership, the movement, the vision, the milestones, the relationships, the time, and the message. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write a book around that. Call it Awaken the Leader, and really actually put together also a 2-day workshop on that. And we started writing, and we wrote, and we wrote, and we wrote, and we wrote, and it was all around the first step, which was leadership. I mean, I had 100 pages before I even knew that I had started on the book. And I was like, okay, if I write the other 6 steps, we're going to have a 600-page book. And I really didn't want to do that. I really wanted No One Stood Up to truly be my journey, my story. So you get lots of fun stories, anecdotal information about me and about leadership. And I really wanted that to be the solid core to begin this journey. Then one of the things you asked me was, are you writing another one? And the answer is yes. We're writing an action guide for the other 6 steps that will truly be something for people to do. So they get the foundation of leadership, and then they can look at the other 6 steps and really make change in the world. And that's really where I want women to go, is to really step into those things that they want to say different in the world today.
That's so true. Sometimes when we start our books, we have this outline and we think we're going to cover. I know my book went the same way, The Power of Story. I was like, oh, I'm going to cover all the reasons you should write. And I had it all outlined down. And I got in the first chapter and I was at 150 pages. And I was like, okay, this is going to be this first part about the journey of writing your story. We're not even going to get to the rest of it, because the book will be too long and people won't be able to digest it. They'll see the book and they'll be like, oh, no way. And so I think that it's funny when you sit down to write, sometimes the writing takes over and the book becomes its own thing instead of what we planned for it to be. And it's great when it works out that way, because sometimes that's the way it was meant to be in the first place.
Mm-hmm. I so agree. I mean, it was a journey. It was a labor of love. I like to say that I gave birth to it, although I guess it was about 9 months. So, it did follow that. But I don't know, Therese, do you get this? I mean, I felt so excited about the fact that it was actually coming out, and it was a piece that my reviewers loved. I was really sort of afraid that they were going to go, oh, gee, Linda, it's really nice, but it doesn't have the impact. And the reviews that I got, and yes, there were people I knew, like, and trusted, but they also are very independent and very, I don't want to say critical, but they do have a sense of, gee, if it wasn't good, they'd tell me, kind of thing. And the reviews were amazing. I had CJ Scarlett, who wrote the Badass Girl's Guide to, I can't remember now. It's about sexual predators, and she's phenomenal. And she wrote this just really beautiful foreword to it. And it was like, wow, people really think that this is a great book. And as a writer, I know you feel the same way sometimes, as you put this out there and you go, is anybody going to like it? Is anybody going to use it? And I actually had, one of my reviewers was a gentleman, Corey Center, who I dearly love. He's a very spiritual gentleman. He teaches alchemy. And his review was so powerful because he said, I think every man needs to read this book, not just every woman. There's power in this for a man as well, to learn the other side of leadership. And that just blew me away.
That's an amazing review.
Yeah.
And I know that when we write, we have that fear, oh, nobody's going to like it. Or it's not going to have the impact that I envisioned in my mind, that I had in my heart when I put the words onto the paper. And for every writer, I think that fear is the same. But we have to put our books out there. We have to put it out there because people are waiting on us. They're waiting on those words, those powerful lessons that we're teaching between the covers of our books. And so tell us how you came up with your title, because I'm going to tell you, I love that title.
Okay. As a military leader and in what they call field grade, I was a fairly senior leader. And literally, when you walk in a room, everyone in the room stands up as long as you are the senior leader in the room. And they'll stay standing until you tell them to sit down. Well, even in corporate, there's that respect, but they don't stand up.
Mhm.
And it didn't bother me as much. But as an entrepreneur, when I'd walk into a room and nobody stand up, I kind of look around like, well, what's the matter with you? Don't you realize who I am and what I do? It was that kind of thing. And I realized that it was respect. And it is something that the military does automatically, but it's done out of respect for the rank, for the experience, for the leadership that that person brings to the room. And we as women, I think we as women have done ourselves a disservice in some respects. I grew up in an age when men stood up when a woman walked in the room, or if you left the table, they all stood up. And you went to the restroom, you came back, they stood up. They don't do that anymore. We, through the women's lib movement said, no, we want to be equal to you. So nobody stands up. So a lot of that respect that we had just out of our gender has gone away as well. So that's where it came from, was, how do we regain that? Not necessarily to have everybody stand up, but just that respect and that sense of leadership. How do we regain that? And how do we move from commanding it to really getting it out of respect and the fact that they want to stand up for you, or they want to recognize you as a leader?
I think that's so powerful because, as you spoke about the lib movement and things that we've lost, I come from the South, and, gentlemen open doors. They open doors. They pull the chair out for you. They open the car door. And I remember when I remarried, my husband would do that. And I caught myself saying, oh, I can get my own door. And then I thought to myself, no, this is how he shows respect and love for me. And so you have to sometimes learn to accept it and to step into your role as who you are as a leader, as who you are as a woman, because sometimes those things that we think, oh no, I want to be equal, I don't want you to do that for me, are signs of respect, are signs of love, admiration. Mm-hmm. And so you have to learn how to accept that and do it gracefully so that you can command it when you're in an audience, when you're from on the stage. I know the first time I spoke, I was so nervous, and I spoke at a local event, and I speak on domestic violence mostly. And so I had everybody in the room close their eyes because I was going to tell part of my story. And I remember a man came up to me after the event, and he was like, it was so powerful when you had us close your eyes because the imagery of your words, we weren't distracted by everything around it. He said, I've never had a speaker do that. That's so powerful. And I thought to myself, I didn't want you looking at me. That's why I had you close your eyes. It wasn't part of my speech. It wasn't an intentional thing at that time. It is now, but it was not at that time. Yes. It was just a coping mechanism for me because I was really nervous. And so I thought, well, if their all eyes are closed, I can talk to anybody. It's like talking to myself. But sometimes those things, those moments that are very impactful, we do by accident, but we need to learn to command them to really, step into that role of leadership, because sometimes I think women are hesitant to step up and really take control. We don't want to offend. We don't want to upset. We don't want to ruffle the feathers. But sometimes we need to, and that's why we need more books like yours who really help us just to step into that role we were meant for anyway.
Well, it's interesting, Therese, because we as women have a gender heritage as well. I don't know about you, but I was taught, it's better to be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. So don't talk. If possible, don't even be in the room. You must know 100% of the job before you can take it. Don't promote yourself. Definitely do not put your hand up and say, I want that job, or I want that responsibility, or whatever. Don't do that. And, you have to be perfect in order to do the job. And there's a story in my book. I love my mom. She was a phenomenal woman. She was a fantastic leader, even at a time when women were not in key roles in leadership. She was the chief executive assistant of this particular company that she was working with, and she was amazing, but she had the perfectionist gene. And so when I had to do my 4-H project, I had to make a skirt. And so every night we'd sew a little bit on it. She did help me with the zipper. But as I look back on it, that skirt was perfect. There was not a stitch out of place. The waist was perfectly folded and perfectly stitched, and the hem was gorgeous. And I realized that every night when I went to bed, she ripped it out, she re-sewed it to where we were so that I wouldn't notice. And it was like, what a disservice. I mean, I want a blue ribbon for it, but it wasn't my work and I didn't know it. The other thing that she also taught me how to knit, and I'm left-handed, so I looked at her to be able to tell what I was supposed to be doing. And my first sweater has this gorgeous inset of intricate stitches. And I look at that now and I go, there's no way that I, as a new knitter, could have knit that sweater to the perfection that it is. And she used to rip it. Every night she'd rip it back, she'd knit it back up. And it's like, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. But she believed strongly that women needed to be perfect. And if I couldn't be perfect, she was going to do it for me. So I think we as women need to also break that mold. I remember going into scrapbooking classes and have the teacher go, leave your perfectionist gene at the door, because scrapbooking is messy and we're going to just have a great time here. So I think if we can overcome our gender heritage and what we've been taught from little girls up, we can really change the world. We can step into those roles. I think something else that women are afraid of is they don't want their colleagues to say, I don't want to be that leader. Mm-hmm. Because we look at strong women who've embraced the command side without the influence side, and they come across as the B word. Yep. And women don't want to be there. They want that feminine piece to it as well. So the marriage of the two really makes us powerful.
And it's so funny that they come across as the B word, because if they were a man, they would come across as powerful, impactful, all these wonderful, mm-hmm. beautiful adjectives. But because their gender is female, they use derogatory words towards them. It is just a fact.
Exactly.
And I know this, you spoke about your mother being a perfectionist. My mother stepped out of her gender role because my mother was a single mother in the 70s. And in the town we were in, the only place that was hiring when my father walked out was the hydraulic company. And so my mother went down to get the job, and she went every single day for 30 days till the guy finally just gave her the job. Because he was like, look, you're not going to go away. You can't do this job, but I'm going to give you this job so that you'll quit and go home and, find yourself a new husband. And so those were his words. And so my mom took the job, and women stand differently than men. That's the first thing that my mom learned, because she was at a drill press, which is a machine in a machine shop, and you put the cylinder on there. And when men stand, their feet are on opposite sides of the machine because they're bigger than women. They have a wider stance. Mm-hmm. They're taller than women normally, and that's the way they stand. When women stand, we stand with our feet together, kind of, politely. Our legs are not spread wide open. They're politely standing together. We're going to stand.
Yes.
So we look feminine. And so the men at that machine shop had loosened her machine. So the cylinder fell. Well, according to, they were like, their feet are on either side. So it's going to hit the ground, make an impact, and scare her. It hit the ground and hit my mom's foot instead, and broke my mom's foot.
Oh.
But the next day, after the night at the emergency room with her broken foot, my mom came back to her job with a milk crate and crutches. The milk crate was so her foot could be elevated while she worked. After that, the gentleman taught my mom hydraulics from top to bottom. My mom has now been in the hydraulic field for probably 40 plus years, and she is well respected in East Texas. She can tell you everything about it, but it was not the field for women. And so for her, and she spent a lot of years with men talking down to her, and then she would tell them what was wrong with their machinery. And then they would be, kind of in awe. And so I grew up with her saying, if you want it bad enough, you can do it. You don't have to know everything. And I remember when I was little, I thought it was a disservice because everybody else's moms baked cookies and my mom did hydraulics. And so she was not baking cookies. Then you would go to parents.
Yeah.
Say, what does your mom do? And they would say, oh, my mom is a secretary. My mom is a nurse. My mom is a homemaker. And I would say, my mama rebuilds tractors. My mom redoes cylinders.
I love it.
I thought it was a disservice, but as I look back, it has a lot to do with the areas in my life that I stepped into with no knowledge of how to do them, just a desire. And I didn't have as much fear, I think, that I would have had if I had grown up with a normal set mom, in quotes there, because, all women are different, but, what you would think of in the 70s and 80s as the gender roles. And so for me, it was an experience, but I think that's why I love your book so much. I love that title so much because I can remember when my mom would work more hours. She would, have to do twice as much as what the men would do in order to just get the same amount of respect and the same amount of money. Because that's still a problem.
Yes.
But
it is.
I mean, and it's, for me, it's been a journey. And I think a lot of women are going to connect with your book in that journey, in their own lives, where they've had those jobs, where they've had those places where they should have gotten the respect. They should have gotten the stand, the people to say, she's here, she's contributing, and they didn't because they were a woman.
I have a client who, she was a project manager in an organization. And when I met her, she was looking for a job. And I said, so what happened? And she said, well, I would bring these projects to my boss and they were really great projects. And he said, yeah, let me take a look at that. And the next thing I knew, my male counterpart was managing the job. And she said, I didn't understand why. And then when they had to lay off people, they laid me off because I had never been in the project management role. And I said, so did you ever say to your boss, here's a project and I'd like to be the project manager on this? Well, no, I just thought he'd know that. Well, obviously he didn't. And I said, so the next time you have an idea in your next company, one of the things to say is, hi, here's an idea, and I want to be the project manager. If you don't feel that I'm ready for that just yet, then I'd like to be the sub-project manager so I can learn the pieces that I don't know so that the next project is mine. And I thought she was going to run out of the room.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that I can do that. It's putting yourself forward. And I know as a military officer, and even what I did in the banking industry, I had an 8-hour interview with my training department boss, because he firmly believed that in order to be successful as a sales trainer in the bank, you had to have banking experience. I said, why? I've been a salesperson. I know how to teach sales. And literally, I spent 8 hours with him convincing him that I could do the job. I sold him on my ability to be able to do that job. And from there, I ended up being the training department head when he left. So we have to own who we are and what we do. I mean, I became a military officer in the Vietnam War. That was something that, I mean, I had lost my high school boyfriend in the war, and his mom said, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "Because I want to complete Paul's tour of Vietnam. And the only way I can do that is to go in as a military officer. I refused to go in as enlisted, and besides, I had a college education." And she said, "I don't want to see you die either." Well, as it turned out, even though that was my number one pick as to where I wanted to go after basic training, Nixon was bringing the soldiers back. And the Corps said to me, "We'd love to send you." I mean, women don't generally volunteer for this, and we had to. But we're not sending any new women over at this point in time. So I got all my dream jobs that I wanted. I ran a human resources department up in Massachusetts. I was the POW MIA liaison up there. I spoke on the Army recruiting team, bringing in high school students into the military at a time that the military was not popular. I was a platoon officer down at Fort McClellan, and had 120 women that I led. So when I was talking about management experience, I go, can you imagine a bank that has 120 employees, and they all come in at the same time? You have to dress them, you have to teach them, you have to train them, they have to be perfect. And then 6 weeks later, they're all gone and you get to start over again. That gained respect, which I really didn't expect, but it was like, wow, you did that? The answer was yes. But I think my key job was I was a protocol officer for a 4-star general, and I was able to influence his choices and how he did his visits and what he ate and that kind of thing. And there's a power in that feminine leadership. Needless to say, I couldn't command him, so I had to use my influence. Right. And I learned how powerful that can be, even in an environment of command.
I remember I worked for an attorney's office, and I was the secretary, the administrative assistant, and I did the QuickBooks. Well, I had been there like 2 weeks when I discovered there was a problem with the QuickBooks, because if people don't know it, a transaction never actually goes away in QuickBooks. Like, you put it in, it doesn't ghost. You may not see it, but it's still there on the master. And so he had a claims person who was putting in transactions for the cash transactions for the law office, taking them back out and pocketing that money. What she didn't realize was that the transaction never actually goes away. So when I would try to reconcile it, it's still there. So I reconciled, because that's what he hired me to do. I reconciled, and I pulled up all of these ghost transactions, that were entered in, but were not reconciled. Didn't say refunded to person, whatever, wherever it went, deposited into bank, there was nothing there. It was $30,000 worth of ghost transactions.
Well,
and so I handed them into him, and then he calls me at home, which, will freak you out when your boss calls you at the house. I thought I just got fired.
Yes.
He said, "Don't come in tomorrow. Take the day off. I'm going to pay you. And I'll see you on Wednesday at 8 in the office." And I thought to myself, he's letting me go. I've done something wrong. He's mad, because I hadn't been there that long. So I came in at 8 on Wednesday, and where I sat, all of my stuff was gone. So I thought, he's unboxed me up. He didn't even give me a chance to clean out my own desk. And so I was like, "Hey, just give me my things, and I'll leave." I was looking for a job when how we get on that defense. I was looking for a job when I found something, and he was like, "Well, no, I moved you to this bigger office over here, because you're gonna now be the claims person." And I looked at him. I said, "I have no idea how to do claims." And he said, "That is not the proper answer." He said, "The proper answer is, thank you for my promotion, and I will be glad to learn." And from that moment on, I thought, this is a man who knows what to say in that moment, because I honestly was like terrified. I mean, like deer in the headlights, terrified. I had never done claims, but he taught me. And he said, anyone who's honest enough to come to me, and tell me that this is gone, then I trust you to take on this role, and that you'll take the courses that I tell you have to have. You'll do your best. I'll pay for them, and you'll do a good job. He said, because my claims person had been with me 10 years. You caught 1 year's worth.
Wow.
1 year's worth, because I was just reconciling for that 1 year. He said, there's no telling how much more has gone out my office, and I did not realize because I trusted. And so I think sometimes as women, we get those opportunities, we get those chances, and we talk ourselves out of them. We say, oh, I'm not qualified for that. Oh, I can't do that. That's not for me. When sometimes you just have to show up and say, I'm ready to learn. You have to be confident enough in your ability that you'll figure it out later to say yes in the beginning.
Yes, and I think that's one of the great things about the military is they throw you into these jobs with all of the confidence that you're going to step into it and you're going to do it well, and you're going to figure out how to learn the job. You'll take classes or whatever. You'll watch people. And for me, it was talking to my NCOs, my sergeants. Sergeants are the backbone of the military, and they are the one. You walk in as a major or a lieutenant or whatever you walk in as, and the first words out of your mouth is, Sergeant, tell me what I need to know. And they can make or break you. And I think that's an important piece to recognize, is the fact that you, in some respects, humility and humbleness is something that you need as a leader in order to really work well with the people that are on your team.
I think that's so true. So tell our listeners how they can reach you, where they can get the book on the 24th, and if they want you to come speak at an event or really just to connect with you, how they can get a hold of you.
Okay. Obviously, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all those wonderful platforms. But the best way to get a hold of me is either through the website at www.leadwithlinda.com, or you can send me an email at linda@leadwithlinda.com. And the book is coming out on Amazon in Kindle for only $1. And it comes out on October 24th. So wait until that day, because it won't be available until that day, and pick up this book for only $1. It will change your life, I am sure.
Yes, it will. And we will have all of our links on our pages on that day. So you can go to our Facebooks, you can go to her Facebook, and you'll be able to just click on the links and get the book. And you're going to want this book, and you can't beat that price, just $1. And it will only be that for a limited time, so you need to take advantage of it on the 24th. Thank you so much for being on the show, Linda. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you for having me, Teresa. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
I've been honored to be here.
And we look forward to reading the book. We are so excited to have it. Tell us one more time the name of it.
No One Stood Up When I Entered the Room. One Woman's Journey from Command to True Leadership.
I love that title. So thank you so much, y'all. I'm so excited for this book. I know you're going to love it. So be sure to go to our pages on the 24th and get that copy for yourself. Once again, this has been Words Have Power with Teresa Hawley-Howard. Thank you for listening. And remember, your words have power. Use them wisely.